Derick Hall is cranking it up for the Seattle Seahawks pass rush as they approach the end of the season. What's going on, everybody? Good morning. It's Friday. We made it to the end of the week. We are just a couple days shy of finding out a lot about these Seattle Seahawks. Are they good? Are they great? Are they very good but not quite great? There's a couple different ways this can go, and I'm excited to see which way they go because the last month has been a revelation for us as Seahawks fans, I think. We've been discovering things that I didn't think we were expecting to discover after the first 8 or 9 games of the season, and I'm ready to see how it ends. But you know what we do every Friday morning as we try to process through what this team is doing, try to put everything together. We go through pass rush numbers and we take a look at Pro Football Reference, see what Pro Football Reference says, and then we put it into our little spreadsheet here to see who is getting after the quarterback. And we don't just use sacks, we don't just use quarterback hits, we try to capture it all, and we use pressures. So we use PFR because they tend to be a little pickier with pressures. You have to really affect the play to get their attention. So I like to take the PFR data. And while we do look at PFF data, I find this to be just a little bit more useful. So let's go ahead and take a look at how they did against the Cardinals, where I don't think the pass rush was as good as it was against the Cardinals the first time. And it certainly wasn't their best game of the year, but it came out looking pretty good. Although I do admit I had to do some of my own math here, and I'll get to what I mean by that later. But starting on the defensive line, Byron Murphy with a pressure. Remember, PFF gave him 4, so PFR gave him 1. So I'm going to go ahead and look at that and just say, well, they're harsher. They're harsher critics, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's probably a good thing on the whole, but Murphy, that's his first pressure in his last 10 games. He had gone 9 straight games without a quarterback pressure, according to PFR. Now he's got one. Jaron Reed kicked in a pressure as well. He had a very nice game. I shouted him out in previous videos. He played really well. That is a guy who you might be looking at as a surprising re-sign this offseason. I was not thinking he would be in that conversation, but I think that he is. And Jonathan Hankins, he had a sack. So when you get a sack, of course you got a pressure. Sometimes PFR doesn't even agree with that statement, but I certainly do. But either way, that's 3 down line. So 3 down linemen get pressures, 1 each. Pretty okay. Not the best, but workable. Inside linebackers, nothing. Still nothing from Ernest Jones, according to PFR. Tyrese Knight didn't get one either. So nothing from the inside linebacker group. Edge rushers, however, we had to do a little bit of our own calculations here. Uchenna Nwosu, PFR did not give him a pressure for this game, but he hit the quarterback. Like, a quarterback hit should always be a pressure. I don't... If you're hitting the quarterback and not drawing a penalty, that should be a pressure no matter what. So I don't care. I don't care. Uchenna Nwosu got a pressure in that game on Sunday. I'm not shortchanging him when it's that obvious. I'm fine with deferring to PFR most of the time, but not when I think it's that obvious that they're just wrong. Like, they just have to be wrong. What he did on Sunday against Arizona was get a pressure, so I want him to get credit for it. Same with Boye Mafe. He did not get a pressure, according to PFR, but if you take a look at that play where Jonathan Hankins got the sack, that's a pressure. Mafe causes the sack. His presence forces Kyler Murray forward in the pocket where Hankins can easily clean him up. And maybe PFR just has a thing where they don't want to give multiple players a pressure on the same play, but Mafe did more on that play to get Kyler in a bad situation than Hankins did. And I'm not hating on Hankins, but Hankins cleaned up what Mafe started. So Mafe gets a pressure. I don't care. Mafe gets a pressure for that play. Normally, I would probably let it go, but given that the pressure led directly to a sack from Hankins, I'm not letting it go. Like, he deserves to be credited for that. I'm sorry, he just does. All right. Derick Hall was the star of the show. He had 3 pressures according to PFR. And let's remember, he also picked up a couple of holding calls. Opposing offensive linemen trying to block him, grabbing onto him. That's as good as a pressure in many ways. In some ways, it's almost as good as a sack. So Derick Hall played an excellent game, and he might be turning it on here at the end of the season. He might be. I'm not guaranteeing anything. We need to see what happens over the next month, obviously, but maybe he's turning it on a little bit. It's been a little bit of a slow go for him since the Giants game, but maybe he's starting to get back into his top form, and that would be nice because you can see that while Nwosu's return is going to help, Mafe is still kind of just, strolling along after a really strong start. So Derick Hall kicking into another gear would be really, really welcome here. Draymond, nothing from Draymond. Very quiet game for Draymond overall. So 0 pressures for him. And I think PFF had the same thing, by the way. So no matter who you look at, Draymond was quiet. Cornerback. We got a cornerback pressure. Devin Witherspoon. He did it again. He's doing his thing. He's doing it. And that's 2 straight games against the Cardinals where Devin Witherspoon had a pressure on the quarterback. So he's met my preseason projection for him of 5. So, hey, he's delivering. He is giving me what I was hoping we would get, and I like it. I like what I see, and I hope that next year it gets even a little bit more exotic. Because remember, there was an extended period of time this season where we couldn't really do exotic blitz packages because our run defense was just that bad. So this is an encouraging sign. 3 pressures over the last 4 games that the team is finding ways to utilize one of his strongest skill sets. This is something he's good at. And safety. We got one from the safety as well. Rayshawn Jenkins had a pressure. In fact, he had a sack on the final play of the game. So welcome to the scoreboard, Rayshawn. And you got there in a very bombastic and notable way. You got on the stat sheet. That's pretty good. So you add it all up, you get to 10 pressures, which is pretty good. Now, granted, you had to add 2 manually. I had to give Nwosu a pressure and Mafe a pressure that PFR was not having. But I stand by my judgment. I think those were objectively quarterback affecting pressures, and I think PFR is wrong to not count them. So I stand by that. I don't feel badly about that decision at all. So 10 pressures, you're up to 122. You got 4 games left. Unless you go buck wild these last 4 games, you're not getting to 200. Now, in fairness, 200 is not and never was a reasonable projection because Uchenna Nwosu basically didn't play this season. And we also had 2 different starting linebackers when the season started that are no longer here. And then you bring in new guys, and suddenly you're thinking about what they're going to do instead of what the guys who left were going to do. So I'm not sitting here saying we needed to get to 200 to be successful. But what I am saying is that right now you're sitting at an average of less than 10 pressures a game. There's work to be done. The good news is I think that there's every reason to believe that next year things are going to be a lot better than this. And they're surviving right now. All right. See you guys later. Go Hawks. Let me know what you think.